have to say that this has been quite a journey to get here. I've literally been late because quite a few things have happened. I am live coming to you from Texas, and I was supposed to come on. I was supposed to come on last night, and I was not able to do so because things are what they are. Literally, I'm here in Texas to attend to a surgery that my son has had to do, and I've been his caregiver. And so things have been a little bit intense. And last evening, though I had planned to come on, I was just not able to do so. I was actually feeling a lot of pain, and so I just couldn't. But today we're gonna be talking about all the things that I planned to talk about, and I'm gonna be sharing the things that I told you that I was gonna share about. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that we have a few months left into this year, and it's quite a good time to get things right in order to make this year, um, to end this year strong. So I know that some of you had signed up and were waiting to come on board for the live session. And if people join while I'm on, then that's even better. But I'm just gonna go ahead and I'll leave this live up so that whoever joins in at your own time, you'll be able to access the information. So yeah, I'm coming in to you live from the Fort Worth area in Dallas, Texas, from the Dallas Fort Worth area. This is our third time visiting this area, so we're quite familiar with it. So that's why we're here, and we'll be here for another week. So I promised that I will go live again a few more times in the process. I'll be sharing with you business lessons that I've learned from this whole experience. So my son came in. I'm just going to get right into it. My son came into. Um, we had this surgery was planned like within a week, like literally. And so I had to mobilize everything in order to get everything done to travel internationally because we're coming from Aruba in order to come into Texas to get the surgery done. And it was a quite an upheaval because a lot of things had to be done, a lot of paperwork, a lot of bureaucracy, lots of things had to be filed and accelerated in the process. And he has missed 3 weeks out of school, but the surgery was urgent and very necessary. So, we weigh those options. And so that's why we are here. And because it was urgent and necessary and it wasn't planned and all those things, and a lot of things went a little bit weird for me. It was really intense. When I say that intense is a word that really accurately describes this period, um, can I think of anything else? Intense just seems the most accurate word in the sense of the fullness of what it is that I've experienced. And so, having had 1 week to plan an international trip, and this is not a vacation by any means, an international trip that pertains to surgery, that pertains to taking care of a child for whom I am a sole caregiver, it meant that because it was not planned, and because of how my business is set up, uh, I had quite a few things on my hands. Why? Because I booked up to a year in advance. I book up a year in advance. So even from October last year, I was taking bookings for December 2023. And so I'm booked and paid up a year, over a year in advance, which is not an issue. That's a good thing. And that's one of the great things that happen as a result of the technique that I use in terms of how I approach business and how I teach my business clients how to maximize their business as well. But having said that, I had to go in and reach quite a few clients and reschedule what I could reschedule depending on the kind of bookings that I had because of course I operated on multiple income streams. So some of these, the majority of these bookings were really for experiences, in-person experiences, and they were traveling to come and see me. So depending on what the travel dates were and so on and so forth, then there was some adjustment. And I've got amazing clients. I always have the best people who come to me. So I'm really very grateful for that. So there was quite a bit of time to, and it wasn't, I had to do it in a short time. So I had to reschedule clients. I had to also cancel some bookings that I just couldn't honor. So I had to cancel some and issue refunds and all of those things. And some of them were canceled, but the money had been in sort of like an escrow, like held in a separate account. So I didn't have to do the refund. The refund happened automatically. So when I said didn't have to do the refund, I mean that I did not have to take the responsibility of bearing the of doing the financial transaction of actually giving back money, because the money was actually already in an escrow account for that purpose. And that's also something that's really very important as well, which protects you in situations like this. So that was one of the major lessons as well, that I've learned from the surgery, was just to be able to one, be flexible enough to reschedule when you need to. It's good to have bookings years in advance because it helps your schedule. But there are situations when there is an emergency and you just have to go when you have to go, and you can't dilly dally around it. I had no options when it came on to the surgery dates. I had to go when I needed to go. And so, well, actually, I did have one option. It was 2 days that I had gotten, which is quite strange. That was just a miracle that happened in the first place. And he, because he has the best surgeons in the world for his procedure, which I'm most grateful for. That is a blessing in itself as well. Having said all of that, if you're hearing me, let me know. I want to see that you're hearing me. Having said that, I am just literally amazed at how quickly we pull this off. So I had to go and reschedule. After rescheduling what I could, refunding what I couldn't, then I also had to clear my schedule so that no other bookings would come in during that period. And I actually didn't do that quickly enough because I was still getting bookings, because I get bookings all the time. My booking process is automated, so I don't have to do anything to get a booking. And I get bookings from multiple places. So I had to go into every place that I actually have bookings and set up, and go and shut off those, clear those dates, block those dates, so that I wouldn't get any other booking. And here's the fun thing about all of this that has happened. I came here and I was able, within a week, not to have to ask anyone permission, no job permission for time off or anything. This is one of the things that is very important about, just being able to work on your business, and as an entrepreneur or solopreneur or mompreneur, to be able to have ownership of your time where you don't have to ask permission. The question was never, would I be able to get the time off to go and do this thing? And it would turn out to be nearly 3 weeks. Would it be, like, which job is going to say, like, give you all this time? Sometimes, it's just not going to work. And then I had just taken off a week before, because it wasn't planned. I took off the week prior to the start of school so I could spend some time with him. And now, what, a week later, you're saying, okay, well, I want 3 more weeks off? That's not going to fly in the vast majority of organizations, because they're going to think you're crazy. Like, why did you not go when, whatever. So it was urgent, and I got the time off. So these are the things that are important. Like, you have to be able to create income that comes from streams that allow you to be able to just say go when you need to go. Now, the other thing some of the things that I've learned, which are very intense as well, all the lessons, not everything I've learned, where the gaps are as well in terms of my systems. And what the gaps are, I just felt like in this era, I was too heavily reliant on in-person experiences. So the fallout in terms of income has been pretty significant, because These are in-person experiences, which means that they cannot be shifted, especially since people are booking travel and all sorts of different things. And so there has to be a greater reliance going forward for me and for my business model on more virtual things, more virtual bookings, and so on, things that can be shifted, not that are not necessarily tying me into a physical place at a physical time all times. Because some of these sessions, if they were virtual, then I'd be able to pick them up. Otherwise, I can't, because it was a lot of work to deal with taking care of a child who's just had surgery. So even if they were virtual, then I also would not have had the focus, at least for the first week. But as he's been easing into his recovery as well, there are gaps, just like how there's a gap right now. So I'm actually going live in this process. So there are ways and means. So one of the things that I talk about a lot, and this is why I this situation illustrates why I drill what I do in terms of my business model and how I teach my clients, that literally the diversification of income streams is extremely prudent, because when one cuts off, then it means that if you have only one lane and that lane stops, then there's nothing coming in. And it's not always easy to be in control in terms of the flow of traffic and how much comes from what lane and so on and so forth. But you do need to have multiple income streams set up as a standard in terms of how you operate your business, how you operate life. And even if you're a professional who's not a who doesn't have a quote unquote business, like a business on the side or whatever, then it also still applies to you, because if you have only one job giving you all of your income, then you're also at the mercy of that one job. If anything happens, you get fired tomorrow, then you're out completely in the cold. So that diversification is important. I also have learned, um, having said that, now I'm gonna shift into. I wrote down some things that I wanted to share because I want to keep on task. I don't have much time and I want to make it as efficient as possible. We want to be able to scale our businesses, because scaling allows us to do more or to maximize volume with the same effort. So instead of one to one, we're doing one to many. And that allows us to be able to reach more, one, do more, and essentially have more as well, because you're able to do more with less effort. If you're doing one-to-one sessions, one-to-one experiences, and only one person at a time, and so on and so forth, then it 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 it, it really takes a much longer time for you to be able to earn as much as if you were doing multiple sessions in one time. And so this is why we have to look into scaling our businesses so that they can grow in any economy. And here are some of the tips that I want to share with you today. One of the tips I want to share with you is that, and I just did actually, is stop focusing on one to one. What I mean by one to one is one client, one session, one thing. Start looking at things that are more one to many. That allows you, as I said, to use the same effort, maximize that effort, maximize the time, multiply the time, and multiply the return on that investment of your time and your resources. And so that's what you ought to be doing. You could have a session one to one, or you could just have one video like this and talk to multiple people, and multiple people can hear the same thing that you said in the one video, and you're able to reach more without having to repeat. So if you have 500 views on a video, 500 people have seen that video, whereas the equivalent of that in a one-to-one exchange would be you'd have to say the same thing 500 times. No, you tell me what happened. Which one is easier to do? Right? So that's one of the things that is very important to be able to do one to many, so that you're able to scale your business, and that gives you leverage in any economy in any recession because it helps to balance up. So for example, if you this is also the same thing that happens in with client with service. I had an agency. My first company that I started when I was 27 years old, I registered, was an agency, media and public relations and communications agency. And the problem with having one big client is that your entire business model runs on that client, or maybe one or two or three big clients. And so if you lose one client, that big honcho, then you literally run into, and I've known agencies, I've known other professionals who have had to pretty much shut down business because they had one major client loss, and the size of that business was so big that it really constricted their business and caused the business to go belly up. So what you want to be able to do is kind of like do have your risk spread out more evenly. So if you have one client paying $1 million, right, versus 1 million clients, just easy math, very easy math, paying $1. Then if you lose one client who's paying $1 when you have a million of those clients, then you only lose $1. So you still have 9,999,999, right? And $99. So 9999999 all the way through. However, if you have $1 million client, one client with who's bringing in $1 million, or who's allowing it, you're earning $1 million off of this client, and you lose that $1 million client, then you're $1 million out just like that. And so it's so important to be able, even in scaling, to be able to leverage that risk by breaking that down and do more, do less, even do less with more people. That actually makes a huge difference to leverage that risk. Now we'll move on to the next thing. Um, One of the things you also want to do is to show up. You want to show up online for one of the same things that I mentioned earlier, because showing up online is one of the great ways to be able to share information to as many people as possible using the same effort or very little effort, because you're not having to repeat it a million times or 500 times or however many times, because you can say it once and it repeats itself. It's the same thing as writing a book. So what you want to do is to create assets and creating video assets, creating content, especially creative content, that you do it once and you're able to put that out, and that continues to be evergreen, is a really great way of maximizing and growing and giving you leverage in any sort of industry. And also, even in the times when you have a downtime, for example, no, when you're not working, like I've been out of the thing for like 3 weeks, but there's still so much content that allows me to still maintain a presence and still reach people, because I'm searchable, because I've got so much out there already that it's evergreen, and I don't have to be constantly doing lead gen to feed a voracious algorithm, especially when I'm not able to do so. And yes, you can have your virtual assistants and so on and so forth. But the point of the matter is that if you're working as a solopreneur, which I am, and I really do believe in one person businesses for a whole bunch of different reasons, and I think I should do a video on that. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on why I believe in one person businesses and why I think it's a really great business model to have in this day and age, and why I'm doing it myself. So yeah, you want to be able to show up online, and showing up online is one thing. The other thing is, it's not the only thing, it's only part of it. A lot of people actually show up online very efficiently. They show up online and they have really great channels, they have people who love them, they have a lot of following. It's very engaging and stuff, and people have millions of followers and actually earn nothing. So showing up online is just one. The the other part of the puzzle is to convert. So it's one thing for people to like, it's another thing for people to do business with you. And that is what is lacking from many, many, many creators. The vast majority of people who actually put out content online, even those who are influencers, really, really, really don't make any money off of the content, or very little money off of the content. They're not making livable income. Many people who have way less. You can have literally less than 100 people, less than 1,000 people, and still make thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's not just showing up that matters. The ability to convert is also very critical. And that's something that you're gonna have to get used to. You're gonna have to get used to selling. You're gonna have to get used to putting yourself out there, putting your business out there, putting your products out there, putting your services out there, so that people will know that they're there. You're If you're not going to be able to promote the things that you do, then why should anybody want to do any business with you? So it's very important that you not only show up, but you show up and convert, right? Now, I think we're getting down to the nitty gritty. I think I have. Is there one more thing? Yeah, I want to say something else about showing up online. I want to say something about media. I come from a TV background, believe it or not. Depending on how long you've been following me, you may or may not know that. But I come from a TV background, and I started out in TV when I was 16 years old. I'm a trained presenter. Have not been on TV for quite some time, so I'm quite rusty and dusty. But the funny thing is, what I've recognized is that media, the mountain of media, has itself a great intimidator, that's standing and manning and trying to ward people off. And this is why people are so nervous to do interviews, and so nervous to be on camera, and so shy. And even people who are successful, sometimes you have a hard time getting them for interviews. I remember when I just started out as a producer for a great interview program, and this was when I was about 19 years old. Some of the most interesting people with the most interesting stories, most engaging person to person, in person experiences, vivacious, all of that. Really, really engaging people with wonderful stories that you just want to go sit and just listen for like hours. Some of these people were notoriously very hard to get to be secured on camera, because they just were afraid of showing up on camera. They were afraid, but they weren't afraid to show up in person. They weren't afraid to show up on stages. But there was something about the mountain of media. There's something about, some people actually are afraid of stages. So that's also one thing. But there's also a lot of people who are not necessarily afraid of a stage. They're not afraid of speaking to people, not afraid of speaking in public. But the camera just makes them clam up. The thought of the camera is just like a no-go area. And so I had to be very persistent as a producer to get some people onto my shows, because, and even with Thrive with Carrie as well, the podcast, there are many people who had really engaging shows, very engaging stories that I really want to share. And it has taken quite a bit of knocking and persistence. Uh, one person told me I was so many people actually did tell me that the only reason why they practically just gave in eventually, because I wouldn't stop. And those interviews were absolutely sensational, because I can spot a good topic, a good interviewee, when I see one. And that just shows that there's something about media that is intimidating. And even going live, doing all of these things is not necessarily easy for many people. Even for those who are trained, there is something that happens where it actually drains a lot of energy as well, because it takes a lot to stand and to present in a certain way. And even after show, if you've ever done a stage production, or if you've ever done any sort of performance where you're standing in front of an audience, where you're actually delivering anything in front of anybody, what happens is that you are sharing so much of who you are. You're presenting, you're giving, you're pouring into the audience, you're pouring out of yourself. And so by the time you're done, you literally do feel expended. And if you're not refilling often enough, then it could feel like a chore. And this is why So many creators, especially those who have not had any media training as well, those who just started to create and then they love creating and then they reach a burnout. Why? Because that happens. It takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of you. And so it's easy to hide behind that intimidation. But I want to tell you that intimidating giant that's stopping you from showing up is the one that is stopping you from your breakthrough. Whoopsie daisy. That intimidating giant that's stopping you from showing up online, from presenting yourself and your business and articulating, that's really the thing that is stopping your breakthrough in business and in life. Because no, you don't have to share your business. You don't have to share the details of your business. Hi, Ansel. I see Ansel here. He says, yep. And I think you're saying yep to being on stage, because I know that you are a really fabulous public speaker. In fact, we were in the same public speaking class with some of the best public speakers, art and artists in the Caribbean. So that's how we met. So it is something that is critical, especially if you are somebody who's running a business or a senior executive at a certain level in your career. Those who are more willing to be available to a publicist, I've also been a publicist, right? Will always be drawn. All of those who are more willing to be available to a publicist to be scheduled for interviews will always get more interviews. And guess what? They're going to be seen, and they're getting their personal branding paid for by the company simply because they're willing to go and be an asset to the company, to go and do interviews, to go and present and share about the company in different on different platforms. And so you want to be able to do that. And even if you have your own company, you're going to have to be the one who's going to articulate it. You're going to have to be the one who has to find the words, the ways, the means to be able to say, hey, this is what I do. This is how I do it. These are my products, and be able to sell that. You've got to be able to sell yourself. You've got to be able to present yourself. And so you're going to have to fight to be able to do that. And it's critical because even though you don't want to show up, you must show up. And those who do are those who do well. Look at Elon Musk. Look at look at Donald Trump. Look at Brunson. Look at all of the big entrepreneurs that we can think of, that we have any sort of respect for, and politicians. They're all willing to show up on media, and we either love them or we hate them, or we feel very, very averse to, whatever, very strongly one way or the other. And that's also part of their branding, because alienating and also finding your niche and your tribe also happens when you present much more of a brash stance on certain things, because people can either say, yes, that's exactly how I feel, and nobody was willing to be able to articulate it that way. And so because of that, then you're the person that I really like and I really have respect for you. Or, okay, you feel so strongly against something that I feel so strongly against, so you're not the person that I like on this matter. So either way, you get to have the people who like you, and those who like you will go for you. And so you have to really fight to show up online. It doesn't matter how you think you look. It doesn't matter if you think you have something in teeth. It doesn't matter on any of those things. What really matters is that you're able to present with authenticity. You're able to connect with yourself. And even if you're shy and you're nervous in the beginning, eventually with practice, you'll get there. You'll get there. The first night I did the weather, I was 19 years old and I was doing primetime weather. And they were doing it live to tape. And live to tape means that it's unedited. And I was so nervous that I almost didn't come on TV that night. And they said, one more take, Carrie. And if you don't get it this time, then, we're just gonna move on, because we can't do this, because they had to move on to the rest of the news package. And when I realized that my entire family was gonna watch the news that night, I was just like, whoa. Oh, everybody was waiting to see Carrie on the weather, and uh, I got it together. Ansel says that your first presentation, your legs were shaking. Yes, it's you. your palms get sweaty, you start to shake, all sorts of different things. But you have to learn to channel that nervous energy in and take ownership of it. And then when I say channel it, I mean just use it, repackage it, and re-present it. So you're not holding on to it, but you're using that as the force that you can use now to disseminate all of that, which makes you absolutely magical and wonderful. And that's very important because energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be converted. So you can move from one form to the next. So you take that nervous energy and you just tell it how to go, what to do. And that becomes, the more you're able to do that and practice that, the better you'll become. The first time I gave a speech in a corporate setting, it was horrible. Not because I've never given a speech before, but you know, there were some things that just went really wrong. And I learned from that. And that's what life is. You learn from the experiences. There is no failure, only feedback. There is no failure, only feedback. There is no failure, only feedback. So if you can't really fail, then what is stopping you from going? You don't have to have, you don't have to be this or that. If you've got something to share, if you've got, you can't, if you refuse to take up your position and teach and share with the people the things that you know, and allow some people who are not qualified to be talking nonsense and to lead people astray. Because if you keep silent, then it only leaves a space for people who are big and bold, lots of noise, but empty barrels to stand up because they're not fearful of standing up and making lots of noises. So they do that because there's a space that you've left. There's a vacuum. But if you show up in your authenticity, even while you're learning and just getting your feet sorted, eventually you're gonna give people a chance, a choice to be able to say, "Oh, this one just is an empty barrel, but this one is solid as a rock." And when this sounds like good information, it's there's this person looks credible and it doesn't seem sleazy. I'm gonna try out this because this just feels more authentic. It may not be with the one who is more flashy and more present, and all of those things because fluff, fluff is just PR. It's just PR. Anybody can slap a good personal branding thing and put on some good 3-point lighting and look like $1 million. But the there's a difference between competence, competence, right? And then there's a difference between competence and confidence. So if you're very confident yet have no competence, there is incongruence. It's just not gonna sit right. But if you have if you have the competence, allow yourself the grace to build your confidence, to be able to share, to be able to step out of your comfort zone so that you can progress. You're going to be able to get better invitations to professional organizations, get leadership positions in professional organizations. People are going to want you in the room when the decisions are being made because you're going to come across more as a presenter, more as a person of esteem, more of a person who should be listened to. And you're going to be much more relatable. People are going to want you in positions of leadership, but they're going to think, and they're also going to think of you because they have seen you. And and that's even why people do advertising. Why do you think people do advertising? Because they want their brand to be top of the mind when a consumer is making a sale decision. So when I go to buy toothpaste, I remember, oh, Colgate, or oh, Aquafresh, or oh, Arm& Hammer, right? Because why? The advertising is just so drilled into my head. And so you want people, so when you stay out of that little sphere, then people forget you. So it's not even that you don't exist, but you're not there for them to remember you. And so because they don't remember you, then you lose out of opportunities that you could have had simply because you have not presented yourself. And that's not always a good thing. And so I've worked with so many executives bank managers, not managers only, but bank presidents, even senior executives, CEOs of multinational companies, CEOs, persons who are in charge of like business divisions for telecoms, all sorts of different persons. And I've had to help them hone their own personal branding in order to be able to articulate well for their organization. And those are who were much more inclined to avail themselves to that process ended up having better careers. Period. Point blank. Even if you decide to stay as a career professional hired by people, you're always going to get better offers. You're going to have better networks. You're going to always be able to be top of the mind to those who are making decisions because you have learned how to present yourself. So, this is critical in order for you to get booked, sold, and busy. And this is the era, we're heading into Rosh Hashanah. This is the era. Thank you for the thumbs up. Whoever's here, give me a thumbs up. That helps the algorithm, that helps other people like you find me. So if you want to get booked, sold, and busy in any economy, this is important. I don't want you to be so overwhelmed by what's happening here and the price of this going here and inflation this and this industry doing that and whatever. Don't worry about any of that. Don't worry about any of that. What you need to do is to focus on all of the things that I've mentioned, especially showing up, especially converting, especially building the confidence in order to present yourself. And in the process, what will happen? Not only will you build an audience of people who like and trust you, because people do business with people who they trust. If I don't trust you, you're not getting my money. If I don't trust that you're gonna execute the thing that you have said, you're not getting my money, right? So if you are able, because if you're really great one to one, you're gonna be great eventually. You're gonna be great eventually one to many. But it takes practice. That's all it does. It takes practice. Do not be intimidated by it. You will conquer it, right? If you need help, let me know. And speaking of which, I have my booked, soul, and busy um, challenge coming up for October. And this is for the last quarter of the year. And this is for you who want to end the year strong. We have the last quarter in. And if you have the go by the Jewish calendar, is the beginning of the new year already. But literally, how you set yourself up, it's not too late to recover. You can, in this last quarter, do better than you did the entire year. You can even do better in the last quarter than you done over the last 2 to 3 years. I kid you not. What did not happen in 3 years, you can do in these last 3 months if you set yourself up properly, align yourself with the right skills and the right strategies and execute like a you don't have to be excellent at execution. You just have to be disciplined at execution. You just have to be bold and strong and say, hey, I'm going to do this and to follow through. Because the truth of the matter is, no matter who you are, there are people who were created to hear a message from you. If you think about it, even in terms of dating, you probably dated a whole bunch of people, like a whole bunch of different guys, a whole bunch of different girls, and they probably said all the same things. But it was just one person. There's just what when the person you settle down with just said the same thing in a different. When they said it, it was just like, yeah, yeah, it clicks. So there are some things that really, and even in terms of teaching as well, it just has to come from a person. And you also want to be able to align with somebody who's willing to challenge you, because without challenge we stay in the same position unless there is agitation. A rubber band will stay just in the same position, will not go anywhere, will not be able to do anything unless you apply tension. When you apply tension to a rubber band by pulling it back, right? And then all the way back until it's completely taut, then release that tension. What happens? Whatever you've held in that rubber band just flies forward. And essentially how a catapult works. Tension is important. And so if you could do it by yourself, you would have done it already. That's the truth. So we all need help. I have my book sold and busy challenge that's coming up in October, the beginning of October. If you go to carrieheron.com slash bold, slash sold, carrieheron.com/soul. I'm going to pin it in the comments after, but it's my name, carrieheron.com/sold, and sign up. There are two ways to sign up. There is the general audience and there is VIP. Either way, I've made it completely affordable. There is no excuse. Now, I know that many of us are okay with being in a very comfortable spot financially, but guess what? It just takes one medical emergency or one turn in our economy or one messed up piece of government policy to completely annihilate profits and annihilate income. So is there really too much? Even if you're comfortable now, could you be making, is it possible to be making too much money? Really? What could you do if you had excess, like real excess? Like what changes could you make? Like what developments could you do? What dreams could you accomplish, whether they're personal dreams or dreams that you have to be able to do good in the world in whatever shape or means? Like what more could you do if you just had more? And so if it is that we are going to be judged, at the end of the day, when our time comes and okay, what did you do with the time that you had? Yes, you are brilliant. Yes, you did well. Yes, you have managed to raise to have a very comfortable life and to do well and to provide for those you have responsibility for. But could you have done more? Could you, with the same expertise, the same skills, the same assets that you already have, could you have done more? Could you have been more? And that's where I am. We need to maximize our time because money likes speed. Money likes speed. What do I mean? I know I've got a finance person on this line. Money likes speed. What do I mean? Money doesn't like to take forever to be raised or to be earned. Money likes to come in quickly. I want to see the chats. I want to see the messages coming in. Oh, Kevin says hi. Hi, Kevin. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Kevin. Long time, right? Money does not like to have any sort of delay. Why does this happen? Because when I get money now, then the money comes in, then the money can grow through investment, through accumulation, through compound interest, all these things. Compound interest is like the biggest baby, like the biggest babe above all else, babe in the financial world. So you can make, and you're seeing so many financial advisors talk about this subject matter now, that you can become a millionaire being a teacher or a very, very simple government job. Not necessarily because you're earning a lot, but because you start to be disciplined and put away a little from very early. And that now has a compounding effect. Money loves speed. So bring it quickly as soon as possible. It's not the amount. Many of us are thinking, let us wait until we have a whole bunch of money, then we can invest. No, no. So what you want to do is to get as much money as you can right now. Anything can happen tomorrow. Anything can happen tomorrow. And we're not doing this out of fear, but out of prudence. There's a huge difference. If you operate out of fear, then oh my God, that's just not the space to be in. What we're talking about is maximizing what you have right now so that you can be more, operating more fully in the grace that you have. Like be more first, recognizing that there is more in you, right? More in you than you think. Do more. So there are lots of things that you probably would do, but if I only had that, then I would. You have some great ideas, but you just don't have and then there are things that you think about before everybody else, but you just don't have that right then and there in your hand to make that decision. Like this thing of forecloses, and but if I only had, then because I see the possibility. But you can see it, but you can't touch it because you don't have. So it allows you to do more. And as a result of being more, doing more, it also allows you to have more. Wealth is not something that is evil. Wealth is something that is good. Wealth is a gift. Wealth is something that is sacred. Wealth is something that is holy. So, all of you religious people who think there is virtue in poverty, nothing don't go so. Nothing go so, as we say in Jamaica. Nothing don't go so. There's no virtue in poverty. There is none. There's none. We were told the first commandment that we got, the first blessing that we got in the garden from God the Creator was to be fruitful and multiply. That fruitfulness and multiplication has not only to do with the multiplication of the human form, but to multiply, period, point blank. Even in the New Testament, this the story of the talent is also a story of multiplication. This the witness of the kingdom of God is that multiplication happens, where one person who believes goes into a space and turns believers out of entire regions. That is it. That is what we do. Multiply. Multiply. We occupy, multiply. And so we need to be able to tap into that. Again, sign up for my next challenge, carryheron.com/sold, to learn how to get booked, sold, and busy. I'm covering 5 days in this challenge, 5 days of different situations, 5 days of different modules that allow you to be able to take from where you are to go to where you want to go. You're going to be armed with the tools, the tactics, the strategies. Yeah. And you're going to be challenged, literally. But sometimes you have to get that taut pullback with that elastic in order to catapult you into your divine accelerated destiny. So that if you don't have that force to pull back, then if you just only pushed it forward, it would only go forward by a little bit. But if you pull it back enough with enough force and enough stretch, then once you release it, it goes even further in the distance. That is what I want to do with you. I want to help you do this year. Results are up to you. I'm pouring in everything that I've learned over the past 15 years in the online space. I'm coming from a brick and mortar background, over 25 years experience in media and marketing communication. I'm not a hurry come up. I'm certainly not an empty barrel. And perhaps, you know, I'm in a hotel room in Texas right now, sharing because I realized that had I not created a business model like this, then I would be in a really peculiar situation for a whole bunch of different reasons. And so I want to be able to share with you. Check the link in the check the link that I've pinned in the box, and we will be able to take this from there. Share this with as many people as possible. Let me see if there are any questions. My first presentation, Ansel had said, like Dave Chappelle said, a comedian doesn't always have to be funny, but he must be interesting. Absolutely. 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 Any questions? If I have any questions, I'll take them. If I don't have any questions, then I'll just, oh, that was nice. I cracked my neck. That was very sweet. If I don't have any questions, then I think I will hop out of here because a sister's got other things to do. I promised you that I'd come in and I'd share with you this Power Hour business expansion tips. And I shared a lot of things that are quite useful. I'm going to be sharing more in my booked, sold, and busy challenge that's coming up at the beginning of October. And you have general admission tickets and you've got VIP tickets. Go and sign up right now. carryheron.com/sold. Share this with as many people as possible. People who are professionals, people who are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, people who are consultants, because it's time to make it. Like, if you're not making it for yourself, making it for the people who need it. So if you can make a millionaire out of yourself, what would life be like if you're able to take your skills that you have and turn others into millionaires? That's going to be extra rewarding. Again, thanks for your time. I'm out of this power hour in less than an hour. I'm Carrie. You can find me at carrieheron.com and sign up for this challenge at carrieheron.com/sold. Get booked, sold, and busy.